And this is the man from Taured. A traveling businessman is detained by airport security, and he discovers that the country that he departed from does not exist.
What if you woke up one day to discover that everything you knew, your country, your identity, your entire existence, was unrecognizable to the rest of the world? A mysterious traveler at a bustling airport faced just that. His documents were flawless, his story unwavering, yet officials were left scratching their heads. Where was this man really from? And how could a nation he confidently called home simply not exist? What begins as an unusual customs check unravels into a puzzle that defies logic and reason. But the strangest part isn't where he claimed to come from, it's what happened next. Prepare to dive into a tale so bizarre, it blurs the line between reality and the impossible. Is it proof of a parallel universe, or something even stranger? The truth might be closer, and more unsettling than you think. The mysterious arrival at Haneda Airport. On a seemingly ordinary day in July 1954, Tokyo's bustling Haneda Airport was the site of an extraordinary mystery. Among the passengers disembarking from a routine international flight was a well-dressed Caucasian man carrying a briefcase. At first glance, he appeared to be just another business traveler blending into the sea of arrivals. However, when he approached customs and handed over his passport, what should have been a routine inspection quickly spiraled into confusion. The passport, though authentic in appearance, bore the name of a country that didn't exist, Taured. The customs officials examined the passport closely, noting that it was worn and carried stamps from previous travels around the world, including past trips to Japan. Despite its legitimacy in form, the officials were baffled. No country named Taured was listed on any map, globe, or atlas. When questioned, the man confidently pointed to the region between France and Spain on a map, indicating where he believed his homeland was located. To his disbelief, the map showed no trace of Taured. Still, the man remained calm and insisted that Taured had been a recognized nation for over 1,000 years. Authorities probed the man's tale but found inconsistencies at every turn. The company that he said he was working for could find no record of him, and the hotel where he said he had a reservation had no booking under his name, and the business he was supposed to be meeting in Tokyo had never heard of him. But his briefcase held currencies from various European nations, only adding to the mystery. Customs officials, who couldn't confirm his professed nationality or find his claimed country on a map, opted to hold him for questioning. They put him under constant guard at a nearby hotel while they conducted an investigation. What came next only added to the mystery. Later that evening, when officials checked on the man, the hotel room was empty, and there were no signs of a struggle. The bed was undisturbed and the window locked from the inside. The guards stationed by the door swore they'd seen nothing of him leaving. Thus, the man from Taured and the mysteries surrounding his arrival remained unanswered, with some even suspecting that he was a supernatural being who came from a hospital in a lost dimension. His disappearance kicked off one of the most baffling stories of modern times, leaving questions that remain unanswered to this day. But where exactly was this mysterious Taured, a place the man described with unwavering certainty, yet seemed to exist only in his mind? The untraceable nation of Taured. At the heart of the mystery surrounding the man at Haneda Airport lies his claim of being from a country called Taured. When asked by Japanese customs officials to identify his homeland on a map, the man confidently pointed to a location in Western Europe, nestled between France and Spain. However, the spot he identified corresponded to the small principality of Andorra, not the 1,000-year-old nation of Taured he described. The officials were baffled. No historical records, maps, or atlases made any mention of such a place. Yet, the man appeared completely genuine in his conviction that Taured existed. The man's certainty about his homeland's existence added to the intrigue. He spoke at length about the history and culture of Taured, as though it was a well-established nation. He seemed perplexed, even frustrated, when told that his country was missing from maps of the world. This was not a matter of mistaken geography. He was unwavering in his belief that Taured was real and had existed for over 1,000 years. For him, it wasn't an obscure, forgotten place. It was home. This conviction left officials unable to dismiss his story outright, even as it became increasingly clear that Taured didn't exist in any known reality. Complicating matters were the man's travel documents, all of which seemed valid. His passport was real in terms of composition, with stamps from several countries, including Japan, which he said he had traveled to before. The document had a seal with the nonsensical phrase Roch ubwai Ostra Nagusi Habesi Truap Turapa, which puzzled officials even more. He also had currencies from different European countries in his briefcase, which made his claims of being a seasoned traveler more believable. Despite an extensive investigation, the officials were unable to verify the man's claims. The company he claimed to work for had no record of him having ever worked there, and the reservation he said he had at a nearby hotel did not exist. Torrid, as far as anyone could tell, never existed in any sense. Yet the man was insistent, and nothing in his demeanor indicated deception or confusion. While Torrid is nowhere to be found on maps or in official records, the man was adamant that the country existed and that the existence should be acknowledged. This led officials to grapple with what appeared to be an unexplainable mystery, one that remains unexplained even decades later. The stranger's convincing credentials. One of the most perplexing aspects of the man from Torrid mystery was the level of authenticity surrounding his credentials. The passport he presented to Japanese customs officials was no cheap forgery. It was meticulously detailed, showing all the hallmarks of a legitimate travel document. It included entry and exit stamps from multiple countries, indicating extensive travel across Europe, Asia, and even previous trips to Japan. Japanese customs officials noted that the passport bore entry stamps from Tokyo from prior visits, which seemed to confirm the man's claim of being a frequent traveler. This detail raised significant questions about how he could have entered the country before without raising any suspicion if his homeland truly didn't exist. In addition to his passport, the man carried a briefcase filled with currencies from several European nations, which supported his claim of being an experienced international traveler. The currencies included French francs, Spanish pesetas, and even German marks, reflecting an individual who had recently traveled through multiple countries in Western Europe. This unusual mix of currencies suggested he was conducting business across the continent, matching his story of being on a routine work trip to Tokyo. Japanese authorities were puzzled. This detail made it harder to dismiss him as a fraud or hoax. Even more curiously, officials noted that the types and conditions of the banknotes appeared genuine and consistent with those in circulation at the time. All these were useful, of course, but the absurdity of the mystery was compounded when the investigations continued and his belongings seemed to be validated but provided no new explanation. The man assured them that he worked for a reputable international company, and he even gave them his name. But when Japanese authorities tried to verify the information, they discovered the company wasn't registered in any system. Likewise, the hotel he said he had a reservation at had no record of his name or any reservation there, nor any empathy for a guest with many other bookings there. And the business contact he said he was meeting in Japan denied he ever even heard of him. These discrepancies cast serious doubt on the man's story. However, his calm and reasoned demeanor made it difficult to call him a liar. During the interrogation, the man appeared genuinely confused by the authorities' failure to corroborate his information, almost as if he truly believed his story was plausible. Perhaps the most jarring thing about the mystery was that all the physical evidence was directed at a normal, good traveler. The passport looked authentic. The currencies he possessed, and even his self-assured manner, all fit in with the profile of a normal businessman traveling overseas. But the key detail of his tale, that he came from the country of Torrid, could not be verified at all. When asked repeatedly to elaborate on his story, this man stood by it and continued to believe that the nation belonged to him. This paradox, how someone with such plausible and compelling credentials could belong to a country that did not exist, left government officials and investigators confounded. It is this paradox that people find so fascinating about the story of the man from Torrid. The inexplicable disappearance. After hours of fruitless questioning and investigation, Japanese authorities decided to place the mysterious man from Torrid in a hotel under constant surveillance. His calm demeanor and unwavering insistence on his story made it impossible to dismiss him outright. The authorities hoped that by detaining him overnight, they could verify his identity and perhaps find some explanation for his bizarre claims. Guards were stationed outside his room to ensure he didn't leave while the investigation continued. Despite the precautions, the situation took an even stranger turn later that night. When officials went to check on the man, they discovered that his room was completely empty. The bed had not been slept in, and all his belongings, including the briefcase filled with currency and the passport from Torrid, were gone. Even more perplexing was that there were no signs of a struggle or escape. The window was locked from the inside, and the room was several stories above ground, with no balcony or accessible fire escape. The guards outside the room said no one had left. They had stood watch all night and would have seen any effort to escape. Investigators were further befuddled by the locked window and the untouched state of the room. How could a person vanish without a trace from a locked room whose door was monitored around the clock? Authorities were left scrambling for answers as the incident unfolded in two of the country's core cities, Beijing and Shanghai, but the details remained illogical. Nothing came up in the days that followed in the investigation. There was no physical evidence or witnesses to account for the man's disappearance. The man, his passport, his briefcase, and the story of Torrid all seemed to have vanished into thin air. Speculation ran rampant, with some theorizing supernatural forces or dimensional rifts, while others proposed a highly coordinated flight. Yet no clear-cut answers were ever discovered, and the story of the man from Torrid has become one of the most confounding, unsolved mysteries of modern times. Authorities also wondered if the man's disappearance could have been part of a larger, orchestrated plot, but never received a tip that suggested outside involvement. His disappearing act has always remained a mystery, too mysterious for logic and the laws of nature. Parallel universe theory. One of the most fascinating theories surrounding the man from Torrid is the possibility that he came from a parallel universe. According to this idea, Torrid is a real country, but it exists in a different dimension or reality. In his world, Torrid is a well-established nation with a history spanning over 1,000 years, located between France and Spain. Somehow, the man from Torrid may have crossed over into our reality, where his homeland does not exist. This theory attempts to explain his genuine confusion when told that Torrid could not be found on any map. Supporters of the parallel universe theory often cite the man's calm and consistent demeanor as evidence that he truly believed his story. He was not only familiar with the geography of his supposed homeland, but also carried what appeared to be authentic travel documents and currencies from multiple countries, all supporting his claim. His frustration and disbelief when presented with evidence that Torrid didn't exist seemed genuine, suggesting he wasn't intentionally fabricating his story, but was instead grappling with a reality where his country simply wasn't there. This theory also provides a possible explanation for the man's sudden disappearance. If he somehow accidentally found his way into our dimension, the universe would have corrected itself, pulling him back into his original reality. His disappearance from behind locked doors in a guarded hotel room, with no evidence of flight, could then be read as a return to his native multiverse. As such, his short time in our world was a glitch in the reality of things, and so it was only natural that he returned to his own dimension once that glitch had been reconciled. Although it may for the rest of us sound like the plot of a science fiction movie, the idea of parallel universes has gained traction among serious scientists in recent years. There are also theories around alternate realities in quantum physics, particularly in what is known as the many worlds interpretation. That means there could be infinite worlds existing alongside our own, with different versions of history and geography. Based on the possibility that the theory could be true, the Torrid man could be an absolute case of crossing into another dimension, but without knowing it, allowing us one of the most incredible mysteries of history. Could the mystery of the man from Torrid be less about dimensions and more about a glitch in time itself? Time travel hypothesis. Another intriguing theory about the man from Torrid is that he was a time traveler, accidentally arriving in a version of the world where his country had yet to exist. According to this hypothesis, Torrid is a real nation, but it only comes into being in the future. The man's confusion upon discovering that his homeland was missing from maps could be explained by his unintentional travel to a time period when Torrid had not yet been established. This theory provides a potential explanation for his detailed knowledge of a country that seemed to exist only in his mind. Proponents of the time travel theory draw parallels to other historical examples where places or names evolved over time. For instance, the modern country of Ethiopia was historically referred to as the Kingdom of Kush in ancient texts. Similarly, Taurid might currently be an unrecognized or developing region that will one day become a recognized nation. The man's belief in the thousand-year history of Taurid could stem from his personal experience in a timeline where the country had long been established, but that history was still unwritten in our reality. The theory also offers an explanation for his abrupt disappearance. The man could be an unwitting time traveler himself, in which case his sudden disappearance from the hotel room could indicate a return to his own time stream. Such a situation could be perceived as the universe actively resolving the temporal imbalance, yanking him back to this future present in which Taurid exists. The presence of locked doors, an untouched bed, and no belongings left behind only serves to cement the notion that the way Jason vanished is contrary to the laws of nature in this era. While exploring the possibility of time travel is purely speculative and squarely in the realm of science fiction, it has been the subject of scientific discussion for centuries. Wormholes, temporal loops, and space-time manipulation all suggest that time travel may one day be possible in theory. It's of course all a ruse, some exploit devised to draw in visitors, but if the man from Taurid was indeed a time traveler, it could well have been a serendipity visit for him to 1954 Tokyo, a short-lived window sneak peek into our future, where the rules governing time and space are entirely different than in our reality. Espionage or fraudulent identity. A more grounded theory regarding the man from Taurid suggests that he may have been a spy or someone operating under a fraudulent identity. During the 1950s, espionage activities were at their peak, fueled by the tensions of the Cold War. It is possible that the man's claims about Taurid, along with his peculiar passport and credentials, were part of an elaborate cover story designed to allow him to travel undetected between nations. The inconsistencies in his story could have been deliberate, aimed at diverting attention or confusing authorities. The passport listing Taurid as his country of origin may have been a sophisticated forgery crafted to avoid scrutiny at international borders. Spies and undercover agents during this time often carried multiple passports with false information to support their covert missions. The man's briefcase filled with currencies from various European countries adds further weight to this theory, as such resources are commonly associated with intelligence operations. If this was the case, the mysterious man might have been engaged in a covert mission when he was caught off guard by Japanese officials. His sudden vanishing from a locked, guarded hotel room could also fit that theory of espionage. If his cover was blown, it's possible that his handlers arranged for extraction for fear the former spy would reveal sensitive information under torture. It was a period when intelligence agencies, if they had the will, had the capability, although the methods were highly clandestine, if not outright stealthy. His disappearance, although a mystery to the authorities, may have been a long-planned operation to extract an exposed agent. Or the man might only have been a smuggler or con artist, not a spy. His paperwork and narrative might have been invented in order to take advantage of loopholes in the customs process and make possible illegal actions, like smuggling illegal goods across borders. Smugglers and swindlers of this ilk typically worked with elaborate forgeries and plausible identities. The country of Taurid may have been completely fabricated as a ruse to hide his true homeland and actions. While this theory does not account for all of the peculiarities of the case, it provides a more reasonable explanation for the man's strange credentials and sudden vanishing act. Cultural and historical context of similar cases. The mystery of the man from Taurid is not an isolated incident. History has seen other puzzling cases involving fabricated or untraceable identities that defy explanation. One notable example occurred in 1960, when a man named John Allen Kuchar Zegras was arrested in Japan for attempting to enter the country with a fake passport. Zegras claimed to be from a nation called Tamanrasset, a place that, much like Taurid, did not exist on any known map or in any historical records. His forged passport was detailed and bore official-looking seals, complete with nonsensical phrases written in an indecipherable language. Despite eventually being exposed as a fraud, Zegras' story shares uncanny parallels with the Taurid mystery, leading some to speculate whether these cases represent a pattern of elaborate deception or something more enigmatic. The mid-20th century provided fertile ground for such bizarre cases, as global travel expanded and Cold War espionage was at its peak. It was an era when spies and covert operatives frequently used forged documents and false identities to move undetected. Zegris's case exemplifies this, as he successfully traveled through multiple countries using his fabricated passport before being caught in Japan. His passport bore stamps from various nations, adding credibility to his claims and allowing him to bypass border controls. Similarly, the man from Taurid presented officials with what appeared to be a genuine passport, complete with travel stamps and records that supported his claims of being an experienced international traveler. In both cases, the authenticity of the documents raised questions about whether they were crafted for covert operations or as part of some other deceptive scheme. Media attention and public fascination have helped to mythologize these cases. When Zegris's ruse was revealed, early reports characterized him as a mysterious figure, with some even offering outlandish explanations, such as he being a traveler from another world. This follows the same trajectory as the man from Taurid story, which became increasingly elaborate when repeated. As time passed, more particulars, including the man's supposed disappearing act from a locked hotel room, have played with fact and fiction. This process of embellishment is evidence of humanity's bottomless curiosity regarding strange occurrences and how they tend to shape them into mythology. What makes these cases even more interesting is the fact that there is a lot of overlap between real and fictional geography. Zegris's imaginary Taman Rasset takes its name from a real area in southern Algeria, which is also home to the Tuareg, a nomadic Berber people with a deep and ancient cultural history. The mixing of actual events and imaginary details makes it all the more challenging to separate what is real from what is not. Likewise, the man from Taurid referenced a particular place seen between France and Spain, corresponding with the real Principality of Andorra. These areas of overlap make investigations enthrall and render the narratives plausible. Combined, these cases still loom as cultural touchstones, raising questions about identity and geography and the human impulse to spin a saga when all is not known. Critics and skeptics debunking the story. While the man from Taurid story has captivated imaginations for decades, critics and skeptics have scrutinized its narrative, highlighting significant flaws and inconsistencies that suggest it may be more myth than mystery. One of the most glaring issues is the complete lack of documented evidence to support the tale. Despite allegedly occurring in July 1954 at Tokyo's Haneda Airport, there are no official records, first-hand accounts, or reports from Japanese customs officials to substantiate the incident. Given the bureaucratic nature of international travel, the absence of any documentation raises doubts about whether the event ever took place. Skeptics also suggest that the man from Taurid may have been inspired by real incidents, particularly the case of John Allen Kuchar Zegris. Zegris's 1960 arrest in Japan for using a fabricated passport from the fictional country of Taman Rasset bears striking similarities to the Taurid story. Over time, details from Zegris's documented case may have been exaggerated or conflated with fictional elements, giving rise to the Taurid narrative. Critics argue that the tendency to blend fact and fiction is common in folklore, as intriguing but mundane stories are transformed into sensational tales to capture public interest. Skepticism that the man from Taurid actually existed is also tied to what has been described as the locked room disappearance of the man. That part of the story, that the man somehow got out of a security-watched hotel room with no evidence of escape, has been roundly derided as improbable. Noticing the lack of any eyewitness accounts or verifiable proof, skeptics suggested that this detail was probably tacked on at some point to heighten the intrigue and better the tale. These elements revealing themselves are typical of urban legends and the paranormal, where unexplained disappearances tend to be a key feature of the genre. Critics have been quick to argue that the locked room scenario is more likely an embellishment in a work of fiction than it is a factual event. Lastly, the absence of primary sources lessens the story's credibility even by 5 senses. The man from Taurid lives on largely through third-hand stories, theories, and retellings, often embellished or tweaked to enhance its intrigue. Unlike Zegris's case, which involved legal proceedings and media coverage, the Taurid story has no verifiable origin point, rendering it more of an urban legend. And, although it is an intriguing mystery, Skeptics insist the saga is probably a made-up account, engendered from the very human desire to understand the ambiguous, not a bona fide historic event. The story of the man from Taurid is a reminder that stories are all too easy to tell, and once told, can become mythologized, and perhaps even more interesting than anything with an actual basis in reality. What started as a puzzling tale soon transformed into a legend, growing more bizarre with every retelling. How did it capture the world's imagination? The evolution of the Taurid legend. The story of the man from Taurid has evolved significantly over the years, growing from a niche anecdote into a widely recognized legend. Its origins are not well defined. However, a similarity with some of the established cases, such as John Allen Kuchar Zagras's forged passport, can be assumed as having taken inspiration from a real-life story. As the story spread, it gained fantastical details, such as the mysterious vanishing act and theories of alternate dimensions, that elevated it from an intriguing curiosity to an enduring mystery steeped in supernatural and paranormal intrigue. As with many legends, the absence of concrete evidence and verifiable details has paradoxically made the story more compelling. The lack of official records or eyewitness accounts has allowed storytellers to add their own interpretations and embellishments, making the Man from Taurid narrative more engaging. Each retelling has introduced new elements, such as the man's unwavering insistence that Taurid had existed for over 1,000 years, his apparent frustration at its absence on maps, and his calm demeanor in the face of disbelief. These additions have blurred the line between fact and fiction, transforming the story into a cultural phenomenon. The continued appeal of the Taurid legend, however, is that it taps into the universal themes that capture the public's imagination. Disappearances that cannot be explained, alternate realities, and mysterious travelers who are never seen again. The locked room disappearance and the untraceable country of Taurid resonate with humanity's interest in the unknown, the potential for worlds that are parallel to ours. Given the increasing talk of quantum physics, parallel universes, and time travel in popular culture, the story feels newly relevant. Modern audiences commonly view the story now through the prism of these scientific and speculative ideas, putting a contemporary spin on an old enigma. The Taurid legend has also been popularized in media, message boards, and discussions of unsolved mysteries. Retelling tends to focus on the coolness of the man, his impeccable credentials, or the unnerving plausibility of his story. Some accounts lean towards scientific speculation. Others hit dramatic notes, describing him as a potential spy, a time traveler, or a visitor from another dimension. This flexibility has helped the tale appeal to different consumers and endure through the years. Today, the Man from Taurid stands not just as a story of a mysterious traveler, but as a marker of humankind's eternal allure for the inexplicable, and a reminder of how legends transform, adapt, and thrive throughout the ages. Thanks for watching. If this story left you with more questions than answers, let us know your theories in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed the mystery, subscribe for more fascinating content, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload. And hey, the next video on your screen dives even deeper into mind-bending stories. You won't want to miss it. Click now, and we'll see you there.